Let me share my screen. Okay, so can you see my screen now? Okay, now in last class, what we did, we study what are the functional elements of a instrument system, and we saw that there are blocks, and I emphasized that all the blocks were not present in the instrument, and gradually I describe what are the different blocks like primary sensing element, variable conversion element, manipulation element, then transmission element, and then I gave some example like pressure gauge, how you can identify the different blocks like bottom tube, temperature thermometer, pressure thermometer. So how you can identify the different blocks. So, and finally what I discuss about the active and passive transducer. That means in active transducer you need a constant power source or a power source from which the energy is derived. In passive transducer you don't need it. The energy comes from the measurement. That means what you want to measure. Now today we'll discuss about the analog and digital mode of operation. So instrument, you will see that there are two types of operation. So instrument can be classified as active and passive. Again, they can be classified into two types of operation like analog operation and digital operation. So in analog signal operation, the precise value of the quantity getting the information is significant. That means you will get the precise value. It is a fully continuous. So if your lower limit of any voltage is 5 volt and upper limit is, sorry, lower limit is 0 volt and upper limit is 5 volt, you can get any voltage in between. That means it's a kind of continuous output what you may get, and that is called the analog mode of operation. The specific waveforms, particularly how the signals are changing and what may be the frequency, all those things of input output are very vital importance. So initially we prefer the analog signals of operation and the error is less, but nowadays digital signal of operation is coming and there are huge advantages. I will come. So in digital signal of operation, it is basically a binary kind of thing, on or off. And one thing I want to emphasize: on does not mean off does not mean that 0 volt. Definitely, it will not be. If it is 0 volt, then the circuit is dead. It's a kind of 0 to 1 volt. Generally, we say that 0 to zero point 0.8 volt when we say the signal is in off state, and then it is kind of 2 to 5 volt. Generally, 4 point something volt comes because of the transistor and all. We say that it is on the on state. So digital signals means that it's a binary operation, either on or off, and variation in numerical values are is the change of the logic state, true or false. That means in the output, whatever be the input, in the output we will get either on, that means 2 to 5 volt, or off, 0 to zero point 0.8 volt or 0 to 1 volt. So, and from that output you will come to know what the input is. So here you see that there are only two states. We call it a logic state. So here the voltage is not important, but rather the logic is important. That means from which the voltage is derived. That either it is a zero state or digital one state. So in digital device, logic one means that presence, and logic zero means the absence, and it is a wide range of operation, and precise value of signals is not important. So it is the important which logic state the signal is, that is the most important. Precise value is not at all important. Now you will see that which one is better, either digital mode or the analog mode. So you see that in analog mode you will get any voltage from 0 to 5 volt. So you may feel that it is better. Obviously, its resolution is much higher. But one thing is that digital device are very tolerant of noise because its logic is important. Either 5 volt or 4 point some volts or some volt, that is important. So when we say that voltage above 4, we call it as 1, and when we say that voltage below 1, we call it as a 0. So that means that this this logic state is important, and if there is a noise, voltage may change little bit, but logic state will not change. Either it will be in one state or it will be in zero state. So digital devices are very tolerant of noise voltage and need not be individually may not be accurate because the output voltage is either 1 or 0, but overall system, because of this tolerant of noise, the overall system could be extremely accurate. So for that reason, the digital signal is coming to picture, and it is most important. Now another issue we need to consider: when we combine the digital logic or analog systems or digital systems, we use the in measurement system, we use that the system limit accuracy, that there is no limit to the number of digits which can be carried accurately. That means the number of digits which can be carried accurately. So when we combine the analog and digital logic systems are used, often in case of measurement system, the digital portion need not limit the system accuracy, and there is no limit the number of the digits which can be carried accurately. That means for 1 volt we can give few 0101 combination, and then the output can go somewhere. So we can use the number of bit so that more accurately we can represent the output, and the noise cannot disturb it. So this is the main thing. So these limit generally does not associate with the analog portion. So analog you will get some voltage, and the based on the accuracy of your measuring instrument or voltmeter, that voltage you can measure. And when noise corrupts, that voltage goes to changes. So whatever be the accuracy of your voltmeter, if noise corrupts, you cannot rectify it. So that is the main problem. But in digital system, either it is 1 or 0, and any voltage you can represent with the 1 or 0. And if you need more accuracy, you increase the number of bits, so that uh, suppose 8-bit system, then you go to 16-bit system, your accuracy will increase, and there is no noise or very less noise associated with it, because it's a 0 or 1 logic state, not the voltage state. So in this way also digital system is more accurate. Another important thing is that uh, you all of you know that nowadays computer is coming, or computer has come in a great way. So computer cannot, so it's everywhere, it's a computer. So whatever system you build, ultimately you have to interface with computer. So if it is your analog system, you need to do A to D converter. So you need to do A to D converter. When you do the A to D converter, then what we do, that this analog system we need to do the A to D converter. When you do the A to D converter, then from analog to digital we transfer. And when you transfer from analog to digital, there may be some error associated with it. But if you work with the digital system, there is no transformation is required. Directly you go with the analog to digital system is there. Directly you interface, you interface with the computer, either maybe using the parallel port, or maybe using any data grabbing system. So and then you go ahead with it, because nowadays whenever you see that all the controller, everything is written in the computer. So when it is in computer, so you need to interface anyway all the measurement device with the computer, and when you interface, your digital system is more user friendly and more easy to interface. So these are the all way all the digital and analog mode of operations works. Okay. So now tell me if you have any query up to this point. Oh, sorry, I was speaking with mute. Sorry. So, sorry. Sorry. Okay, let me speak again. Let me speak again. I am speaking with mute. Let me speak again. Okay. So, what I am saying, so there are two methods, which is null method and deflection method. So, in null method, let me speak again. Sorry, I spoke while my mic is mute. So, in null method, the classification is whatever I was saying, that in null method, there is no deflection, or the point is short when there is no deflection. In deflection method, we see the deflection. So, for example, if we give the example of the null method, I was speaking that and it was muted. Sorry. So, in the null method, what I see that the whenever you go to grocery shop and there is a balance, it is not a digital balance. Suppose it is the old balance and there are two sides. One side the shopkeeper put is the weight and another side the grocery elements. And on the top, he sees that where this balance is reaching to zero position. That means the pointer on the top. When it reaches the zero position, what it happens? When it reaches the zero position, what it happens? The amount of weight he put on the one side is the similar weight of the grocery shop of the other side. So this way he find out or measures the weight. The next thing, let's see that how he measures. The next thing is that the deflection type. What is deflection type? So now if there is, you see the speedometer of a car, that is a deflection type. So in deflection type, what happens? There is, when you try to measure some physical quantity that produces an effect which produces a deflection in the pointer. Now the pointer goes deflected and there may be spring or something which opposes the deflection. We call it the restoring. So when restoration happens, when restoring force is equal to the deflecting force, then what happens? Then two balance are, then it is in the equilibrium position. So the pointer get deflected and stay there when the input is in the steady state. And then you see the pointer by your eyes and you measure the reading. So this is the way the deflection type work. So, so these two broad categories, one is null type, another is deflection type. So in the second point, that's what it is written. In the deflection type device, the measured quantity produce some physical effect of deflection that produces the deflection in the pointer, and there is a spring in the pointer or other restoring forces which try to restore it. When it try to restore it, the spring in the pointer try to deflect, restore it, and the force try to deflect it. When both the things are in equilibrium, then the pointer got deflected and it stays there. When the pointer got deflected and it stays there, what happened? You can see the and measure the reading. So this is all about that. So what is the example? You see anything like the voltmeter which got deflected, like the ammeter which got deflected. And what about the null type? You see the balance, you will see the dead weight pressure gauge. I will come into discussion into that. So the that kind of thing. So I'll try to discuss more. So a null type device attempt to maintain a deflection at zero, and by suitable application of an opposing force that measures the quantity. So necessary to such an operation are a detector of unbalance and of restoring balance. So the deflection is kept zero. So so determination of the numerical value requires the knowledge of other accurate thing. For example, if you see the balance, the determination of the measurement or the weight depends on how accurate these weights, standard weights are. Because you are seeking the null point, and by measuring the standard weight, by seeing the standard weight, you are seeing how accurate you can measure. Now the accuracy, when it comes to the accuracy now the accuracy attainable by the null and the deflection method. Generally, the accuracy attainable by the null method is of higher level than that of deflection method. So the accuracy attainable by the null method is of higher level than that of the deflection method. Generally, I always say generally. Also, since the measured quantity is a balance out in the null method, the detector of unbalance can be made very sensitive because its slight deflection or imbalance make it the unbalanced thing. For example, I give one example. Suppose Wheatstone bridge. All of you know the Wheatstone bridge. So in Wheatstone bridge, when you try to use Wheatstone bridge to measure either the resistance or the capacitance or the inductance, what we try to do, we try to restore the null balance. So when it is on the null position, then we see some other parameter and then we measure. So here you see that the if slightest current pass through the voltage, it got deflected. So achieving null is difficult. When you achieve the null, it's very sensitive to it. Okay, so that's why generally the null method is more accurate than the deflection method. And another thing is that the a detector of unbalance can be made very sensitive because it need to cover only small range around zero. So you can make it very sensitive so that it can slightest imbalance cause the deflection. So the sensitivity will become very, very high. But now you may ask what sensitivity is. I'll come to that later in detail. I will discuss what is the sensitivity, all those things. So another thing is that all detector need to be calibrated since it must detect only the presence and the direction of unbalance. So whether the balance is achieved or not and the direction of it, but not the amount. So you can make it extremely sensitive. Then null method have difficulties in dynamic measurement. This is another issue. So when you want to dynamic measurement, so null method, I was saying that null method is very good, is that high sensitive, but the null method the has the difficulties when you try to measure any dynamic quantity. So what does it mean? It means that null method, when you see, suppose you want to measure a speed with the deflection method, that means your when the input is dynamic, that means when the input is changing, not very rapidly but slowly. Suppose you are riding a bike, your velocity increases gradually, then you decrease the velocity. So as the input, that means the velocity changes, your deflection will also change, and you can see it. Now if you want to measure the same thing with the null balance, it's very difficult because once it is changed, you have to do all set of things. You have to change the voltage, you have to change the resistance, this that, to achieve the null balance of Wheatstone bridge or something else, and then you see. And in that part, doing so, it takes a lot of time, and in that time, the input voltage may change. So when you are using the null balance, you are using a dynamic input. That means the input is changing with time, slowly. Why I mean slowly, I will come to that. So in that case, your null balance is of no use, almost no use. So why I said the dynamic balance, dynamic input, and the input is changing slowly. What does it mean? It means that suppose your input is changing very slowly, then only you can measure with the deflection method. If your input is changing very rapidly, suppose your input is changing very rapidly, can you measure it with the deflection method? No. Why? Here the students do some mistake. They thought that it is possible. No, because as the input is changing very rapidly, if it changes, the output is a pointer. It can change, but it cannot go so rapid, ups and down, above and below, because it has an inertia. Now, think one example. Let us see you want to measure some voltage with the voltmeter. Suppose your voltmeter is, you have a voltmeter, you want to measure the voltage, and your voltage is changing with time. Now, as the voltage is changing with time, if it is very slowly changing, or if it changes and stays somewhere, then the pointer can follow. Now, suppose it is very rapidly changing, going 220 volt up, and the next moment it is going 220 volt down. So the pointer cannot follow such rapid ups and down because the pointer is a mechanical device. It has an inertia. It cannot follow that. So it is not possible. So if the input is changing very rapidly, it is not possible to measure with the deflection method, neither in the null method. Then how you can measure it? Either you need a very different device, or you need a device, you need to grab the input. So what you can do, you grab the data, you grab the input, and then the input, whatever you grabbed, you see that on the notepad. When you see that on the notepad, when you see it in the notepad, then what you do? When you see in the notepad or in some other CSV file, you see how it is changing, and computer can read it and tell you that what the way it is changing. So you need to grab data. So this is the way it goes. So now, do you have any query up to this? So please ask or write it on the chat box. Yeah. So earlier it was muted. Now I unmute it. So if you have any query, you can write over the chat box or you can ask it. So okay. So if it is not, so then let's start it more. So now let's come to one example. You see that
I spoke a lot of things. Why I did not give a concrete example to you? What is the mean of the deflection method? What is the mean of the? What do you mean by the? What do you mean by the dead weight? Now you see that left hand side. Left hand side is a dead weight pressure gauge. Left hand side is a pressure gauge which is dead weight pressure gauge. Now let's see how it measures. So let's see how it measures. So there is a piston, you see, and it is immersed in a liquid. It is immersed in a liquid, and there is a lower stop and there is a upper stop, and there is a standard weight. So platform assembly is of known weight. Now you see, if there is no weight on the standard platform, what will happen? The buoyancy force of the liquid will push the platform and it will stop on the upper stop. And if you put more and more weight, it will go below. Now suppose you have no weight, so your piston is stopped on the upper stop, then you gradually try to increase the weight in traction, and then when the weight is exactly equal to the buoyancy force of the liquid, then what will happen? The piston will just float. That means it will be on the null position. Now you count the weight, how much standard weight you put on the platform, and that will be the pressure of the liquid. So this is the way you measure the null point, and this is called the dead weight pressure gauge. This is called the dead weight pressure gauge. Now, this is an example of the dead weight pressure gauge. This is example of the null point detection. Now, let's see the galvanometer, which is a beautiful example of a deflection meter. So, in galvanometer, what it does, when any current pass through it, it get deflected. When it get deflected, the light got deflected, and then you can see it over the scale. Now, see how the galvanometer is constructed. In near classes, in near future, I will come to detailed construction because it is in syllabus. But now, just within a few lines, I want to state. Let's say you have a magnetic. You have magnet like that. It is a kind of square. Not always square magnet is used. Many times it's a U-shaped magnet is used, and there is a part where there is nothing, just it's vacuum, and inside that there is a weight. It's hanging over the spring, and there is a mirror now, and there is a light and which focuses on the meter and it get deflected on the scale. Now what happened when you have some current pass through it and through this coil wound on the frame? What happened? This coil gets magnetized. When the coil gets magnetized, what happens? It gets deflected because there is another magnet in it. When it gets deflected, when the coil gets magnetized and when it gets deflected, so the mirror, the light coming to the mirror and getting deflected is change its position, and you can measure it on the scale, and based on the scale measurement and other formula you can determine the current, you can determine the voltage, you can even determine the charge passing through it. It's a very sensitive device. So now this is called the galvanometer. So when so this is a beautiful example of deflection type. Now you see you have a null type example, you have a deflection type example. So now you tell me if you have any query, because next I'll move to some other discussion. So if you have any query, please ask or write over the chat box, whatever you like. Okay, as there is no query, let's move to the next part. Now let's see input output configuration of measurement system. So how you can configure input output. This is very important, another important section of the first chapter. Input output configuration of measurement system. Input output configuration of measurement system. So Baba, what is the desired input? Just 1 minute, I'm coming. Okay, so let's come in. So there are input output configuration of the measurement. It's very important and applicable to all sort of measuring systems. So there are input quantities. So when I say that you you place your measuring system on the measure end, there are few things which come into effect or which come into the system. First thing is the input quantity. What is input quantity? There are desired inputs. So there are few inputs which is desired input. So desired inputs are, these are the quantities that the instrument is specified or intended to measure. That is the desired input. That means I built some instrument which is intended to measure some input. I build a thermometer which is intended to measure the temperature of my body. So that is the desired input. There is other inputs which are not desired. So those inputs are classified into two categories. First is interfering input. What is the interfering input? Interfering input are the quantities to which the instrument is unintentionally sensitive. So the interfering inputs, I don't want the interfering inputs. I don't want my system or measuring system to be sensitive to the inputs which I don't want to measure. But always it is not possible. So those inputs are called the interfering inputs. Interfering inputs are the quantities to which the instrument is unintentionally sensitive. Interfering inputs are the quantities to which the instrument is unintentionally sensitive. So let's come to a block diagram which will make more clear to your concept. Now let's see this block diagram. What is this block diagram? See, now you see ID, lowest part, you see ID. It is written, what is written? It is written desired input. ID, come to ID. It is written desired input. What is the meaning of the desired input? Desired input is FD is the block where the desired input comes in and the output goes. So output component due to desired input is IM, which goes to the output. So the desired input and the output. So ID when I say it's a desired input, FD when I say it's a transfer function, and it goes to the output. Now there are two other inputs you come into see on the top, which is interfering input. This is taken from the wavelet. So interfering input is II. What does it mean? II means it is the interfering input. It goes into another block, which is transfer function. I call it FI, and it gives some output. So I want desired input, I want output only for the desired input, but there is another interfering, another input which is coming into output which I don't want. So this is called the interfering. So here that's what it is written. That if you see that FD and FI are the input output relationship, means that the mathematical operation necessary to obtain the output from the input. This much perhaps you know because now you are doing the control class. If there is some input, there is a transfer function, and with the transfer function you multiply in the S domain, you will get the output. So if there is an input desired, there is a transfer function, you will get the output. If there is an input which is not desired, interfering input, there will be a transfer function for that. And you multiply that with the interfering input, you will get the output. So if D and if I are input output relations, means that the mathematical operation necessary to obtain the output from the input. So they represent different concepts depending on the particular input output characteristics being described, a constant mathematical function, a differential equation. So whenever you say the transfer function, what it is, so it represents a dynamic input output relationship. So you all know that transfer function may be a constant, transfer function may be a differential equation, which is generally it happens. It might be statistical distribution. So when there is a stochastic process, so when you multiply this transfer function with the input, you will get the output. And with the desired input, you will get some output. And there is some inputs which is not desired, which is called the interfering inputs. For that also you get some output. Now there is another input which is also not desired. It comes into play, which you call the modifying input. What is the meaning of the modifying input? So these are the quantity that causes a change in the input-output relations for the desired and interfering. These are the quantities that cause a change in the input-output relations for the desired and the interfering. Mean that this modifying input changes FD and or FI. This is the important. So what is modifying input? It can change the interfering inputs as well as the desired input. Now come to the block diagram. What does it mean? Now this is the block diagram. It's very important. You see the block diagram. So there is in desired input which comes here. There is interfering input which come out. there is another input which is called modifying input, which is coming and it can modify, it can go modify the interfering output, it can modify the desired both or any of it. So it is called the modifying input, which modifies either interfering input or desired input or both. Now see what the output you are getting. You are getting output. Output is the sum of all these two, all these three. So you are getting the output for the desired input. You are getting the output for the modifying input. You are getting the output for the interfering input. So all the things are combining together and you are getting output for all the three. So so you get the output for all three. So what happens? You want the output only for the desired input, but you are getting output for the modifying input as well as the interfering input, which is not desired. So you are getting something absurd and some output which is not exactly related to your input. Here is the problem. So here the problem comes. So again, I am telling what is the modifying input. Modifying input is the input at the quantities that causes a change in the input-output relations for the desired and interfering input. Means that they cause a change in FD or FI. FMI and FMD represent the specific manner in which IM affects FI and FD respectively. So these are quantities that cause a change in the input-output relationship for the desired as well as the interfering input. Means that they can change the FD, means transfer function of the interfering inputs. They can change the FI, transfer function of the desired interfering input, and desired transfer function. FMI and FD represent the specific manner in which it affects in the figure. Note that the effects of both the desired and interfering inputs may be altered by modifying inputs. So now it's very interesting. You see, what do we want in this picture? You come to see. We want the output due to only this. So we don't want these blocks, but we cannot avoid it. In the process of designing a system, measurement system, these unwanted blocks are coming into picture, where the interfering inputs are coming into picture, where the modifying inputs are coming into picture, which is going to the output, and we are getting such output, which is the addition of something which is desired input. So from the same output, we cannot measure the input properly. So we need to do something. So now tell me, is it clear or is there any query up to this point? Because this is very important concept and you should understand it. Okay, fine. So even if you say that it is fine, I got that at least some interaction is happening. Either I am just speaking in front of some dead laptop screen and it's very painful. Okay, now let's proceed further. Now, then what is our objective? What did we see? We see that we want some output for some input, but there are some other inputs which is coming into picture, and for that we are getting output. I'll give some example, very definite, clear example. But then what is our objective? Our objective is to remove those undesired outputs due to those undesired inputs and see what the output, exact output should be. Before coming into picture, let's give some examples. So what did I say? I said that there are three types of input. One is desired input, one is interfering input, one is modifying input. So we need to so if you see some example, let's say take an example of a strain gauge. So what is strain gauge? So let's say there is a here is a bar or something is there, and we want to measure the strain in it. Strain means you all know stress and strain. So small elongation by full elongation. So now here we place the strain gauge. Strain gauge is nothing, very simple. I'm saying in detail we'll read. There is a chapter of displacement measurement. There we'll read strain gauge in very detail. 2-3 classes we'll spend. Here I'm giving very simple, quickly something. So strain gauge is a kind of wire which is placed kind of small U shape like this, and then when some strain happens, this strain gauge is pasted on the surface. When some strain happen, what happens that it got elongated. It's got elongated. As it's got elongated, what happens? The resistance changes, and that is changed by the Wheatstone bridge. And and then there is RC. You see, this resistance is changed slightly so that the balance position is achieved. Once the balance position is achieved, we know the three different resistance arms. So we know the how much resistance RG is.
And we know for that much change in the resistance, how much strain it is. So we can calculate the strain. So this is the way we can calculate the strain. And we call something gauge factor, GF, which is gauge factor. And we multiply the strain into RG into GF, we get the delta R, and from where we could measure the strain. So now let's see what is the desired input. Here the desired input is strain. That means when we apply the strain gauge should behave, should change its resistance, and we could measure the change in resistance, and we could say what the strain is. Now, what is the interfering input? This is very important. So here always there is an electric field because there is a power line going inside lab and inside many places. So here 60 hertz they said because in America their power frequency is 60 hertz. In our India it is a 50 hertz. So here you should not read 60 hertz, you should read 50 hertz. So there is a 50 hertz signal everywhere because there is a power line. The 60 hertz, 50 hertz signal is everywhere. So now let's see if there is a 50 hertz signal everywhere. So this will interfere. This signal will come and this will interfere. So this will become say, interfering inputs. Now you see the gauge factor GF, which is a constant, but it is not a constant. It is a function of temperature. So when temperature changes, suppose you are measuring some strain and the temperature changes, what happens? Then the gauge factor also changes. That means your measuring strain measurement will be uh, erroneous. Now it is a modifying. Now come into the interfering input. Now come into the modifying input. In modifying input, your temperature is the modifying input. So because if you change the temperature, if temperature is changed, then the resistance of the strain gauge will change. So and then it will give the erroneous. Then again battery. So you have a EB, which is a battery, which is forcing the uh, Western bridge in an unbalanced way. In the balance condition, we need to do change RC so that null point is achieved. So battery is a major issue. Suppose the battery is drained and there is very less amount of voltage it's supplying. So what will happen? So it's null point, choosing null point, sensitivity will decrease and you can measure the different strain. Battery voltage is modifying it. So all those are things. So when you design a device, you need to remove all the interfering inputs, you need to remove all the modifying inputs, only the desired input should be there. Now let's come another example, manometer. Very simple examples I'm giving. It's a manometer. What is that? It's a very simple. There are two pressure arm P1 and P2, and there is a mercury arm, and there is a scale. Very simple. So when P1 P2 are different, one mercury arm will rise high, another will be low, and you measure the difference X from the scale, and then you calculate with the multiply with the rho G and all. You will know the pressure difference between P1 and P2. And if you know one pressure, you will can calculate the another pressure also. So here, where is the desired input? You need to know the difference. You need to measure the difference in pressure. So P1 and P2 are the two desired inputs. What are the interfering inputs? Suppose coming to here. Suppose you are measuring a pressure by means of that. Now suppose you put that pressure gauge on a cart and cart is accelerating. So when cart is accelerating, what will happen? Your mercury will be tilted. Okay, so even your pressure P1 P2 are same, you will see the difference in pressure, which I say is X dash. So X dash is not same as X. So all the pressure are same due to the acceleration of the car. So it is not a desired input. Now suppose you tilt this, although the pressure are same, if you tilt it, the difference will be X double dash different. So tilt angle. So that's what I'm saying here. So here modifying inputs, here the interfering inputs, the acceleration, interfering inputs, the tilt angle, which is interfering. Now, what are the modifying inputs? Here, ambient temperature is the modifying input. What is that? Suppose your ambient temperature changes, then your density of the mercury will change. The difference in X will change. Then you have to accordingly correct it. Otherwise, you will get the wrong answer. Gravitational force. Suppose you are doing some experiment here, and then you are doing some experiment on the top of the hill. What will happen? Gravitational force will be different, so we will get the different pressure. Although the so erroneous pressure, tilt angle is also can become modifying input. So here I gave some detailed examples. So you see that all those things will happen. So what is the takeaway? Takeaway point is that although we need to have some desired input, although we need to have some desired input, we have some interfering and modifying input which is affecting the output. So by seeing the output, if you calculate the input, it will be erroneous because the modifying and the interfering inputs are coming into picture. So you need to have make you need to devise some mechanism which will give a more accurate or more close answer to the exact quantity you want to measure by wiping out some way the effect of interfering input and the modifying input. So this is the main thing I want to say. Now tell me if you have any query. Is it clear or you have some query? So this is a very important concept in today's class we discuss. Okay, very good. So it is clear. If anybody has any query, because today we discuss a very important concept, which is that how the your measurement systems become erroneous. And next class maybe we'll discuss what we should do so to get uh, comparatively accurate results. Okay, less error. Error free, I should not say. Error free you cannot do. So less error. So our objective is to make error as less as possible. Okay, so I think so it is clear to everybody. So now today we will end class here. Tomorrow we'll go in fresh and we'll discuss how we can design some mechanism so that this interfering inputs and effect of the interfering and modifying inputs would be removed. So today we can end class here, and now tell me any other query if you want or if you have. Now I stop sharing. Okay. Okay, so if there is no other query and related to this class, related to earlier class, related to the course, then we can drop here. And but tomorrow we'll sit again and discuss. But the number of students attending is very less, so this is not good. So it's not even 50%, maybe 50% or something. Okay, so now for the time being, now we dismiss the class. So, and tomorrow again we'll come, sit, and discuss. Okay, and those who want to read more, you read the Doeblin. I am following the Doeblin, chapter 1 or 2, and you read the Doeblin line by line. The book is available online free. There is no issue. So you read it, and you will see that whatever I am discussing, the same thing is written, and you will understand more. Okay. Okay, then let's drop it. Tomorrow we'll see it again.